Night fell over the city of Ravenwood, and the light rain created a melancholic scene. Sergeant John Mitchell and Detective Lisa Carter were on duty at the station, ready for any emergency calls that might arise. The city, with its dark alleys and empty streets, often revealed its darkest secrets at night. It was a night like any other until the call came. A concerned resident reported an incident at the Hargrave Mansion, a secluded estate on the outskirts of town. The Hargraves were an enigmatic family, and the mansion was known for its mysterious history. Rumors of strange appearances and activities had circulated for decades. Sergeant Mitchell and Detective Carter received instructions and headed to the mansion, with the light rain falling non-stop. The mansion stood majestically among the dark trees, its windows looking like curious eyes in the darkness. The mere mention of his name was enough to send shivers down the spine of any Ravenwood resident. When they arrived at the estate, the mansion was enveloped in silence and darkness. The streetlights seemed to defy the darkness, and as they illuminated the mansion, they revealed a scene that seemed straight out of a nightmare. Mitchell and Carter parked the car and approached the main entrance, each step resounding on the wet stones. As they entered the mansion, the gloomy atmosphere immediately enveloped them. Walls covered in old paintings depicted somber faces of past generations of the Hargrave family. Portraits of people with melancholic looks and 19th century clothes seemed to follow the investigators with empty eyes. Mitchell felt as if the mansion itself had an ominous presence, as if it was watching them. He and Carter moved cautiously through the dark hallways, their flashlights lighting the way. Every sound was amplified in the darkness, creating an uneasy feeling. The original call reported strange noises coming from the mansion's basement. Mitchell and Carter decided to investigate. The staircase leading to the basement was steep and dark, and they descended cautiously, their flashlights lighting the way. In the basement, the air was damp and full of mystery. They heard distant whispers and laughter that seemed to echo off the stone walls. The atmosphere grew heavier and heavier as they advanced, as if darkness itself was closing in around them. That's when the basement lights flickered and went out, leaving Mitchell and Carter in complete darkness. They turned on their flashlights, but before they could understand what was happening, the door to the basement slammed shut behind them, locking them underground. Panic immediately gripped them as they realized they were trapped in the dark, dank basement of an infamous mansion. They were not alone in the darkness, and the feeling that something sinister was watching them grew with each passing minute. The nightmare was just beginning. In the basement of the Hargrave Mansion, the whispers and laughter that echoed off the walls seemed closer and closer. The air was filled with a foul, oppressive smell, and the investigators felt like trapped prey. They decided to explore the basement in search of a way out. Cautiously, their flashlights illuminated walls covered in old photographs and handwritten notes. The images were disturbing, depicting dark rituals, strange creatures, and members of the Hargrave family performing dark deeds. The notes revealed a macabre history of the family, including their connection to supernatural forces. As Mitchell and Carter continued to explore, the whispers and laughter intensified, and the feeling that they were being watched became unbearable. The shadows seemed to move around him, as if they had a mind of their own. Finally, they found a secret room hidden behind a dusty bookshelf. Their flashlights revealed walls covered in even more sinister photographs and notes. The images appeared to capture moments of macabre rituals, with members of the Hargrave family surrounded by sinister shadows. The notes detailed the family's quest for power and immortality, as well as their alliance with dark forces. As they examined the photos and notes, the whispering turned into demonic laughter, echoing through the basement. The shadows around them began to twist and take shape, revealing grotesque figures and hideous creatures. Mitchell and Carter were surrounded by nightmares that came to life. The creatures advanced, hissing and growling, their eyes blazing with hatred. Mitchell and Carter drew their weapons, determined to face whatever was before them. However, when they opened fire, the bullets passed directly through the creatures, as if they were made of smoke. Desperation took over the investigators. Mitchell and Carter retreated, but the shadows seemed to block their path. It was as if the mansion itself was conspiring against them, making it impossible to escape the nightmare unfolding before their eyes. As the creatures approached, a supernatural entity emerged from the shadows, the most sinister being of all. It was a dark figure, with empty eyes and a macabre smile. Mitchell and Carter knew they were facing something beyond human understanding, something that defied all laws of reality. The entity approached slowly, defying any logical explanation. The air was charged with static electricity, and a feeling of despair overcame the investigators. They knew they were facing a force they could not defeat with bullets or logic. The underground nightmare had reached its tipping point, and the fight for survival was just beginning. Sergeant Mitchell and Detective Carter were trapped in the basement of the Hargrave Mansion, surrounded by dark entities and a supernatural entity that seemed to defy reality. The sinister creatures approached slowly, growling and hissing, while the dark entity kept its blank gaze on the investigators. Mitchell and Carter's hearts were pounding, and despair took hold of them. They had faced dangers throughout their careers, but nothing compared to this terrifying experience. The bullets seemed useless against the shadowy creatures, who dodged them with ease, as if they were made of smoke. The supernatural entity remained motionless, its macabre smile echoing in the minds of the investigators. It was as if he was feeding off the fear emanating from them. With each passing minute, the feeling that they were losing control over reality grew. In an act of desperation, Mitchell and Carter decided to retreat to the secret room where they had found the ominous photographs and notes. Maybe there was some clue or information that could help them understand what they were facing. Rushing into the room, they searched through the photographs and notes, hoping to find some answers. The notes detailed dark rituals performed by the Hargrave family in search of power and immortality. The names of dark entities were mentioned, and the rituals seemed to involve human sacrifices. It was as if the Hargraves had made a pact with supernatural forces and were now condemned to an existence of darkness. As they rummaged through their notes, the room began to shake, and the floor opened beneath their feet. Mitchell and Carter fell into a dark, damp tunnel. They were now in an underground labyrinth, far from the haunted mansion. Investigators knew the only way to escape was to find a way out, but the maze seemed endless. The walls were covered in strange symbols and ancient inscriptions, indicating that they were in a place with a dark history. As they explored the maze, they began to hear whispers coming from the shadows. The voices whispered their names, as if trying to draw their minds into the darkness. Mitchell and Carter knew they could not succumb to fear, as it was exactly what the dark entities wanted. Hours passed, but they found no way out. The surrounding darkness was oppressive, and the labyrinth seemed to have a mind of its own, changing its corridors and directions. The investigators were losing hope when they finally spotted a solid wooden door in front of them. Cautiously, they opened the door and entered a large, candle-lit room. In the center of the room, they saw a hooded figure with its head lowered. They approached slowly, hoping to find answers. When the figure raised its head, Mitchell and Carter were shocked to see the face of the patriarch himself, Hargrave, a man who had passed away decades ago. He smiled, revealing empty, night-black eyes. With a wave of his hand, the candles went out, plunging the room into darkness. The nightmare was far from over, and the investigators were now faced with the Hargrave family patriarch himself, who seemed determined to drag them into the depths of darkness. The room was plunged into darkness, and the figure of Patriarch Hargraves smiled with empty eyes. Sergeant Mitchell and Detective Carter could barely see a foot in front of their noses, but they knew they were facing a supernatural entity of indescribable power. They could not allow the darkness to consume them. Mitchell, with his heart racing, drew his gun and fired several shots in the direction of the Hargrave patriarch. However, the shots passed through the hooded figure as if it were made of smoke. Mitchell couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was as if the patriarch himself was an illusion. The patriarch's laughter echoed in the room, filling the investigators' ears with an ominous sound. The voice echoed in their minds, promising power and immortality in exchange for loyalty. The entity stated that the Hargraves had made a pact with dark forces centuries ago, and now it was Mitchell and Carter's turn to choose their fate. Carter, resisting his rising fear, shouted, "Never! We will not be part of your evil plans." She grabbed Mitchell's hand and pulled him toward the door, desperate to escape the room and the Hargrave patriarch. The entity roared in rage and tried to stop them, but Mitchell and Carter ran through the dark room, guided only by the dim light of their flashlights. They opened the door and returned to the underground labyrinth, but they knew they couldn't stay there for long. As they ran through the halls of the labyrinth, the voice of Patriarch Hargrave continued to whisper in their minds, trying to seduce them with promises of power and immortality. The temptation was strong, but Mitchell and Carter refused to give in. They knew that the price of such power was very high, and they were not willing to sacrifice their souls. Finally, after a long time of wandering through the maze, the investigators found a staircase that led them back to the basement of the Hargrave mansion. The light rain continued to fall outside, and they were free from the darkness that had surrounded them. Mitchell and Carter ran out of the mansion, leaving behind the haunting they had faced. The Hargrave mansion was now silent and dark, as if nothing had happened. They knew that no one would believe their story, and that the mansion would continue to be a place of mystery and horror. As they walked further away from the mansion, they could hear Patriarch Hargrave's distant laughter echoing in their minds. They knew that the nightmare was not over, and that the shadows they had faced would follow them for the rest of their lives. The story of Hargrave Manor became a legend in the town of Ravenwood, a story that was told in whispers on dark nights. Mitchell and Carter, however, would carry the weight of their experience forever, knowing that evil can lurk in the deepest shadows and that the desire for power can lead to dark pacts. And so, Hargrave Manor remained standing, a silent witness to a macabre past, and the secrets of shadows continued to dance on its dark walls. Horror was always lurking, waiting for its next victim in the dark of night.